Credit cards are a trap, and that is their main goal that they were engineered for. They want customers who are going to mismanage their cards, and they even call the people who pay off their balance monthly deadbeats. So I'm going to talk today about credit cards as somebody who's 23 years old. I have 2 credit cards, and I've been using at least one of them since I was 18. But before I get into it, let me know down below what your strategy is. Do you pay off your monthly balance every month, or are you carrying a balance? Are you in debt? Are you dealing with the traps of credit cards? As well as, if you don't have a credit card, are you interested in opening one up, or are you trying to avoid credit cards altogether? So I think when we consider credit cards, you have to talk about the risks versus the rewards. And we'll start with the rewards. What's the good stuff? The good stuff is that usually you get a bonus for opening up a new card. It's a couple $100 usually, or sometimes they're mileage points or whatever. And they give you cash back as well. So that's what they usually advertise. You get a percentage of cash back for different spending categories that some cards rotate, some cards keep them fixed. That's all stuff to look into. Other benefits, like I kind of mentioned, are the travel miles or the points, or sometimes rewards that they give you. So certain cards are geared towards traveling, and when you get a certain amount of miles, you can get free flights. And they also build your credit, and that's important for if you want to get loans, or if you want to buy a house, rent an apartment, all things that your auto loan, they're all going to look into your credit score, basically just saying, hey, how good are you at paying things back? Are we going to get our money back if we give you a loan? Stuff like that. Now, the negatives of credit cards is that some have an annual fee. So you have to pay however much money every year just to have the credit card. So that's a big negative in my eyes. As well as you get access to a large amount of money instantly. Like, it's just a monthly loan, you can kind of look at it as. So, they give you a credit line. So let's say it's $3,000. That means every month you can spend up to $3,000 on your credit card, which is pretty dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. Now, another huge negative is going to be the insane annual percentage rate, or APR, or also known as just interest rate on your debt. And usually this is around 20 to 30%. I don't actually know what it is at this moment. We'll get into some examples a little bit later, but that's a huge amount of interest to be charging on your debt. Not to mention, if you're going to miss payments, make late payments, or hold a huge balance, it's going to hurt your credit score. So that's going to hurt your ability to get an auto loan, rent an apartment, buy a house, get any other sort of loan in the future. So those are all things that you kind of want to weigh out, right? The risks versus rewards. And I think the risk of mismanaging a credit card is way, way, way worse than the rewards or the cash back or the benefits of opening a card. And credit cards aren't the only way to build your credit. There's a million other ways or other avenues to go if you want to try and build your credit. I'm not an expert. I honestly don't fully understand the credit score, but I know that you don't need a credit card to build credit. And so when I say credit cards are a trap, it's because these companies are looking for people who are going to mismanage their credit cards. They want people who are going to overspend what they can afford in a month so that you carry over a balance every month, and then you get locked into this high interest on that debt that you now have. So their goal is to get you sucked into the cycle of trying to pay it off but never coming close. And more specifically, how they will try to trap you is they're going to advertise either 0% APR, 0% interest, or $0 minimum payments for the first, 3 to 6 months, however long. I think my specific case, I have a Chase card, and it was 0% interest for 15 months, which I didn't even know. I had to look it up, because what they don't tell you is that interest rate does not matter if you are not carrying a balance. So I don't even know what my interest rate is on my cards because I don't carry a balance, but they try to lock you into these super high interest rates that are just going to compound while you're trying to pay off those or that debt that you have from the credit card. And typically, from what I've heard, the minimum payments on your balance or on your card, like minimum payments that they have you pay each month, typically, if it gets so bad, it doesn't even cover the amount of interest that you're gaining each month. So you never actually get to touch that principal balance on your card, which is just not good, because then you're scheduled to just never pay off, and you're just constantly shelling out money to pay off the interest and never touching your actual balance on the card. All right, so I want to talk about an example of a card I have. So I have a Chase, I think it's Chase Freedom Unlimited, and this is the second card that I've got, and I got this about 6 to 7 months ago. And all these numbers that I'm about to share are from the original paperwork that they gave me. So basically, it was advertised, I didn't even know this, I had to look at it, 25.49% APR. And there's actually fine text that even says it varies on the prime rate. Not exactly sure what that means. I guess whatever, if it goes higher, they're going to charge you higher, or if the standard's lower, they're going to lower it maybe. I don't know. This doesn't impact me because I don't carry a balance, but basically it then said that it would increase about 4 percentage points, so to 29.24% if you missed a monthly payment. So not only if you can't pay off what you're charging on your card, if you miss that payment, it's going to skyrocket the interest and just create even more money that you're going to have to pay in the long run. And I think one of the most dangerous things about credit cards is that people don't understand compound interest. All right, so let's use a real world example. If you have a 10% APR, 10% interest rate, whatever you want to call it, on a $10,000 loan with like a 1-year term length, let's just keep it simple. That does not mean that at the end of the year, you would have paid $11,000 total for the loan. What you should be doing is taking the percentage, so 10%, dividing it by 12 months, that's the length that we're going with here, and that's 0.83% every month. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, and it's not a lot. If you multiply that by $10,000 balance, it's only $83 in 1 month. Now that is kind of a lot of money, not much if you look at it in the terms of the entire $10,000 balance, but then the next month, you're going to get that 0.83% interest on the new balance, which would be $10,083. And that's $84 in the next month. Again, only a $1 increase, but we're using small numbers here. So what that would actually mean is that in the term of this loan, where it's 10%, $10,000 1 year, you would pay $11,047, which again, doesn't sound like a big difference from the $11,000 total if it were just a flat 10% on $10,000. But if you think of it more in credit card debt, let's say you have $20,000 worth of credit card debt at 24.49% APR or interest rate. That means that you would pay $25,492 or $5,492 in interest on a 1-year term. And that's a pretty big number. And what's so dangerous about these cards is that it's the psychology of you have a bunch of money now, you're spending it, and you don't see it immediately impact your bank account because you're not liable to pay that money till the end of the month. So they make it very easy to lose track of your spending and feel like you can afford more things than you actually can. So unless you're checking that balance on the card like it's a bank account, you're not going to know how much you're spending. And that's very dangerous when you start to rack up a balance that you can't afford. And like I said, with the interest, you're just going to get in this trap of trying to pay it off, never being able to, but still having expenses in life to pay at the same time. All right, so now I'll just talk a little bit about the cards I have. So I initially got a Discover student card back when I was like 18 going into college. And I just mainly use this for gas and occasional purchases, kind of just warming up to the idea of having a credit card. I think it was like 2% cash back on gas, 1% on everything else, which not bad, not great. But then once I got a job and an income, I opened up a second card, so a Chase Freedom Unlimited card. And I just kind of wanted a card with better cash back. This has some other benefits like travel, restaurants, things like that, which I figured I'm going to start getting into a little bit more. So I really just use the Discover card for gas now and the Chase card for basically everyday purchases. I really don't use my debit card too much, but that's just the way I use it. I would say I'm kind of a intermediate credit card user towards beginner. I don't use credit cards like most people probably, and that's okay. You can kind of use them however you want, but as long as you're paying for the monthly balance every month, you won't have to worry about interest or overspending. Now, if you're trying to get into credit cards as somebody who's either young or has never used a credit card before, I would suggest you find a card with no annual fee because you really don't need those cards. If you think about it, if a card has an annual fee, you need to be making more in the cashback or benefits than you are paying for it every year in order to turn a profit or to have it be of any benefit to you. Now, this might be an interesting take, but I would say just ignore the APR or the interest rate. They're going to try and sell you on these interest rates, but you don't have to worry about it if you're paying your card off in full. I don't even know what my interest rate is on my cards because I pay it off in full. And if you're going into a card looking at the interest rate, saying, oh, that's not that bad, or you're considering, what interest rate is best for you, then you're already planning on using a credit card wrong. And if you're just getting your first card, I would suggest just using it for a consistent monthly purchase. I used gas because it was something that I bought a couple times a month. I knew it was a standard purchase I would be making. And this helped me kind of get in the habit of checking my credit card balance and then paying it off in full every month, right? Because it's a small amount of money. I know that I need to pay for gas anyway, and I'm going to have the money for it at the end of the month. Because what you don't want to do is just start using it for everyday purchases. Then you don't really understand how much money you're spending versus how much money you actually have, and that builds a bad habit. So speaking of habits with cards, I put a little list of good habits to have. I think the first one is a necessity. Never carry a balance month over month. Now, this is super important because, like I said, they try to trap you by advertising, oh, you don't have to pay any minimum payment for the first however many months, or there's no interest if you carry a balance for this many months. Because then you see your balance not going up, even though you're not making full payments. And then by the time the term of that benefit is over, they're going to start charging you the interest, and you weren't even ready for it. Another good habit to have is to check your credit card balance at least weekly. You need to be knowing how much you're spending on that card so that you don't overspend. Now, this one I don't know as much about, but I heard it from somewhere, is that you shouldn't close out or discontinue an old credit card because it hurts your length of credit. I'm not a big expert on this area of credit score and credit length and all that, but I think if you discontinue a card, it then cancels out like any history of having that card. I could be wrong, but I heard that somewhere, so I thought I would include it. And then the next one is going to be, if you have an annual fee card, I mentioned this before, make sure you're getting more in cash back than you are spending on it, or else you're just pissing money away. That's basically no benefit. If you're just paying more in the annual fee than you're getting in return, then you're not getting any rewards from that card. So then finally, I would say if you're just a casual credit card user like me, using it for everyday purchases or just trying to get some cash back on like gas or things like that, stick to a card with no annual fee. It's just not worth it, in my opinion. Again, I don't have as much experience with annual fee cards because I don't have any. I think in general, unless you're super into credit cards and know a ton about it, you probably don't need to be getting an annual fee card. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. This is kind of just me yapping about credit cards. I'm not an expert by any means. This isn't financial advice. So make sure you do your own research, look into things, and find out what's best for you. I'll see you next week.